So I'm here with the Emmy award-winning producer of one of the biggest reality television shows on television, Bertram Van Munster. Did I pronounce your name correctly?
Perfect. Perfect, like a Dutchman.
Okay, great. So I'm off to a great start. So my first question is, what were you actually doing before reality television? Because I saw on your page that you weren't actually doing reality TV, I think until the 1980s, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, well, there was no reality TV before the 80s. There was no reality TV really before we started it, with the show Cops. That was the first real big-scale reality television show in America. So, and I was the producer of that, and I was the lead cameraman on that.
Yeah, so what inspired you to get into television? Is it something that you always wanted to do? And did you ever expect like The Amazing Race to get as big as it had or has?
Well, look, I've been in the film business my whole life. I started then as an assistant cameraman, assistant director, et cetera, et cetera. I worked with very great cinematographers, and then I became a cameraman myself, and I've done a lot of commercials. I used to do a lot of commercials in many years ago, and that was in those days. That was the right thing and the hip thing to do. So, and a lot of documentaries when I was still living in Europe. Did I ever believe The Amazing Race to become as big as it is? No, but I knew the concept was really great. But I could never have pulled it off without the support of CBS and the support of the viewers like yourself.
Yeah, so what inspired you to actually create the race? Did you like travel a lot growing up, or was there any like moment where you were like, okay, this is the show that I want to create?
No, I mean, as a filmmaker, I've traveled my whole life. I've been always very involved in international television production. So I was always all over the world to begin with. But this show was created by my partner, together with my partner, Elise Doganieri. So that's how it started.
Yeah, so can you maybe describe what you do on the race? Because obviously you're one of the co-creators, but I'm sure, like I've interviewed a bunch of people from the first season, from the early days. I'm sure you travel and do all that stuff. So maybe describe what you do for the viewers besides just being the creator.
Well, I'm the creator or co-creator together with Elise, and I'm the director of the show, and I'm the producer of the show. So I got my hands full. So whatever goes on, I have my hands in. Whether it's Phil, directing the show, putting cameras, etc., etc. The complete work as a director around the world. That's what I do. And then, of course, I'm producing the show as well, and I write the show. I create every season that we go around the world. I write that up. I'll travel it. I travel the world. Write the production, what we're going to do, and basically a scenario, synopsis, what we're going to do, and that goes on the wall in photographs around the wall, so everybody can see what I have in mind, and that's how we create the show. So I have my hands full. Nothing happens without me being very involved in it.
Yeah, so you just talked about how you kind of like structure the show and everything. So one of my viewers wants to know, are the non-elimination legs predetermined? How do you figure out what's an elimination leg, what's a non-elimination leg?
Everything is predetermined. Everything. Nothing is being done last minute. Nothing.
Okay, so have you ever had an event that forced you guys to have maybe a leg or a task in a different country that maybe wasn't planned, or that you kind of had to work on the fly, or is everything in 32 seasons gone smooth sailing?
It happened once when there was a hurricane in Central America. That's the only time we had to make a change from what I can remember.
So what was the most unexpected thing that you had to do while traveling? If that's doing a challenge, some fun story that happened while traveling, was there anything that unexpected that kind of pops out even to this day?
No, not really. We are when we go out there, we are very well prepared. It takes me about 4 or 5 months to prep a show. So we go multiple times to the countries, deal with the permits in these countries, deal with the authorities, get the creative approved by the network. No, it's very prepared. But once it's prepared, when Phil says go, we let them loose. We just let them go, and then they're all on their own. and we just follow them with the cameras. Well, just follow them. It's a very complex thing to shoot, of course, but that's how we do it. Yeah, no last minute changes.
So, what was your favorite place maybe to go to while traveling? And do you have maybe like a favorite challenge or a favorite moment?
Well, it's hard to say. You know, they're all my favorites, even the weak ones. um, Favorite place? It's hard to say because you know I travel so much. I've been just in about every country around the world at least 3 times, except for North Korea. So it depends on my mood, you know, where I want to go, where we're going. But yeah, unexpected things. Yeah, things can be unexpected, but they're small things, you know, nothing that will affect the position of the racers or the contestants.
So I've talked to a bunch of people from like the earlier days. So how do you come up with all the twists and turns? Because I've talked from people from like season one, from like this, all the way from season one to this past season. So how do you come up with the twists and turns, the yields, the U-turns, all that good stuff? Like, was that maybe a thought further on down the line to kind of spice up the show, or how do you come up with all the twists and turns?
That came later. It came later, yeah. As you said, it came later. Not in the beginning. In the beginning, I wanted to keep it very, very clean. I think we only had a fast forward in the beginning, which was very clean. Was a very cool race. You know, the more bells and whistles you put on it, doesn't always get better. You know.
So obviously in the Amazing Race, we see the roadblocks, the detours, the fast forwards. How do you come up with all the challenges specific to that country? And maybe on in the earlier days, have you ever participated in the challenges, or who actually participates in them? Because some of them I have to assume you have to test them beforehand. So how do you go about that, like per country?
All challenges are being tested thoroughly, so they are doable. For as somebody that is, you know, you don't have to be Superman to do it, but you have to be either fearless or you have to be a good thinker. You have a good brain in your skull. So so that's how we do that. Now, I would say the challenge that you see, I would say 90% of the challenges I come up with together with Elise that we create because our knowledge of the world and the cultural aspects are you know we probably the most well versed in that arena.
So do you have like a team that comes up with that, or is it like just the production crew, or like who's the ones actually, or is it the locals that participate in it, or who actually is it?
No, it is most of the time it's me. But as I travel, as I write the script for the show, and then I put it with the team. I have a challenge team, and then we work out the details how we're going to do this responsibly, safely, and logically. But the challenge is most of the challenges I come up with.
So where is somewhere where you haven't been where you want to go?
Well, where we haven't been, I don't want to go. Places like West Africa, I have no desire to go there at this point. But there's no, we go to the places that are safe and where we want to go, and where we can produce the show.
Do you have any favorite behind the scenes moments? Maybe not something unexpected, but that's like funny that happened while you were traveling, or any funny behind the scenes moments, maybe with Phil or in a specific country that kind of stuck out?
Well, you know, it's for us, it's work. You know, of course, we have a good time doing the show. There's no question about it. Maybe on the scout we have some funny moments, you know, but on the actual production, it's pretty much hard work because we shoot the show every day or every other day. So you can imagine how busy we are. And we have a major crew around the world. In every country, we hire about 250 people, plus my crew of about 80 people. So by the time we all said and done, we hire about 2,000 or 2,500 people around the world that work on the show as drivers, as production assistants, as the field producers, as local producers, as location managers, etc., etc.
So, like I said before, I've talked to a bunch of people from like season one. So I know that you designed the show, you planned on it, you started working on it. But was there anything out of the ordinary maybe that happened in that first season? I heard from a bunch of teams that they got to some fast forwards and production members weren't there. And sometimes they got on a plane and you were there and you were like, how did you get on this plane? I heard that from Pat and Brendo when they got to Africa. So was there anything out of the ordinary that maybe happened, like with you seeing teams?
How they got on that plane, the people you're talking about had never traveled. And they got on a plane out of Johannesburg to Paris. That's what you're referring to, I think.
Yeah.
From Johannesburg to Paris. And there's an airline, it's called Air Gabon. And that is from West Africa. And they have one airplane, or in those days they had one airplane. And that one airplane, for some reason, it didn't show up on our radar out of Johannesburg to Paris. And they got that flight and they stopped in Gabon. They had no idea where they were. They stopped in Gabon for refueling and then continued on to Paris. And I remember I think they were the first ones in Paris. And that was totally unexpected for season one. But that's more than 20 years ago. But it was brilliant how they did that.
Yeah, so how has the race evolved in the 20 years? Obviously, you have a bunch of new technology, I had to guess, and probably traveling is a lot easier. But how has it really evolved from season one to even now, post-pandemic?
Well, the logistics, first of all, a lot of people that were working on the show in those days didn't know the world that much and didn't know how the logistics would work out. The people that did know about it were people that worked with me in the past, like cameraman. Some of the cameramen knew, a few producers knew about it, but the majority of the people I have to teach them how to travel around the world. And in those days, it was very difficult to travel around the world because of the customs and the paperwork, et cetera, and all the equipment we bring in. But what was the rest of your question?
Just like how has it evolved in the last 20 years from like season one to now, even now going into post-pandemic era?
Yeah, it has evolved, of course, constantly. We have to adapt to the planes were booked up, et cetera. So sometimes we had to book flights for the contestants and for the crew members, et cetera. So that's happened, of course, quite frequently because the flying was so popular at one point. Not right now, but 3 years ago, it was all the planes were fully booked all the time. So, but we're very flexible. We have a great travel department. We have great people now that know how to do this, that have been working with us for many years. They understand the logistics. They understand the cultural issues that we deal with. And so it's actually much easier than what it used to be.
So my next question is, so when you see teams such as like Jamie and Cara, the cheerleaders, the runner-ups from season 14, arguing with people all across the world instead of spreading cheer, like John and Victoria throwing backpacks from season 6, like everyone hating the Weavers from the family edition. And then you got teams like Oswald and Danny who just shop and like are just having a good time and making sure that they look good all around the world. What are you thinking when you see moments like that? And then to follow up that question, what do you think makes for like a great team? Because we see all these different dynamics that like no team is alike at all.
No, I am horrified when people are insulting to other people. But it's their responsibility, to behave themselves. I mean, they almost got arrested several times, by being so rude to people. Because you're in a third. What's that?
I said Jamie and Cara almost got arrested.
Yeah, you gotta be respectful to people. The fact that you're in a different country and where people don't have what we have doesn't mean you can be disrespectful to them. So I tell them always, be really, really respectful to the have-nots on this world. You know what I'm saying? But people have a tendency of really looking down on them and say weird stuff to people. Fighting among themselves. I'm not a big fan of fighting, but if that's what they do, that's what they do. We don't interfere in that. But and then they say, oh well, they edited me wrong. No, we don't edit anybody wrong. We edit them exactly the way it came out of the camera. So yeah, you can make a fool of yourself when you're out in the world, and insult people on a cultural basis.
Yeah. So to follow up that, like, what do you think makes for a good team?
Well, you need to have a good sense of humor. You need to have a good stamina. You need to be in good physical shape. but most of all, I think you need to have a good sense of humor, and you need to have a sense of direction. And you need, I would prefer to say, you need to know the world. A lot of people have no idea what the world looks like. They have no idea. As you know, they say, "Oh, we ask them sometimes, what city are you in?" They go like, "Oh, we are in Hague, in the Hague. Hague. Oh, where is the Hague? Oh, the Hague is in Amsterdam." Stupid stuff like that, you know. Or they say, "What country are you in? What country in Africa are you in?" Egypt. They don't know. They don't know where they are. Sometimes they don't know where they are. They don't know where they're going. It's the weirdest thing. People, I don't know. Sometimes you wonder if they've gone to school.
Yeah. So, where do you see the show going post-pandemic with COVID and everything, and how do you adjust after that? Because I bet people are like scared to travel, and I assume Amazing Race Productions will hopefully be started again soon. But how do you like maybe reassure people, or where do you see the show going from here after like the COVID?
Well, I don't know. Let's see how it works out with COVID. You know, last year, as you probably know, I pulled the plug as the first Hollywood production. We were shooting in Norway, and I pulled the plug when COVID started. And it was just in the very early stages, but I made some calls around the world, and it was spreading everywhere. It was in Asia, it was in Europe. And I said, you know what? I'm not going to be the choo-choo train of COVID for schlepping all these people around the world, you know what I'm saying, and leaving a trail of COVID. So I stopped the production, we stopped the production, and we all were home in 72 hours. So where do I see it's going? If there's a physical risk, it's a physical risk for contestants or crew, et cetera, we're not going anywhere. You know, it's not worth it. No, you can't do it, obviously.
So do you have any scary travel moments, maybe like in the race, maybe whether that's like being on planes? I know there were a couple like flight strikes during a couple seasons, or maybe like being in a situation where maybe there was maybe a culture that you weren't used to and you kind of had to adjust. But do you have any like scary moments that happened while traveling, or has everything kind of been like smooth sailing?
Well, you know, let's touch wood. You know, we haven't had any severe accidents, except rolled a couple of cars and everybody walked away from it. But generally, we have been very fortunate, sticking to the rules of sticking to the traffic rules around the world, et cetera, et cetera. But if you step away from those rules, you can get yourself in trouble really quickly. But yeah, we have had some issues. There's no question about it. But not to the point that it's life-threatening or anything like that.
So how do you scout for places in the race, and what do you look for in a place specifically to travel? Because like in season 5, you went from like Russia to Egypt to Argentina, you went to all these places, and then like seasons like the family edition, you didn't really travel much out of the United States. So what do you really look for in places to travel, and how do you scout for those places? Like,
well, we don't fly from Egypt to Argentina, that's for sure. You know, that would not be any logic in that.
Yeah, I'm just saying those were countries you visited.
Yeah, I understand. But there's a complete logic in how I lay this out, and people don't understand the logic very often because they don't know the world well enough. They don't know the map. They don't know the topography or the geography of the world. So they don't know. They think it's a lot of people think it's random what I do. Nothing. What I do, nothing is random. It's all thought out. You know, there has to be a logic to it because otherwise you can't pay the bills for it. You know, the logic comes from producing, money, and creative. These are 3 elements that belong together. And if you step on any of these elements, you know, it can get out of hand financially very quickly. So there's an absolute logic. If you look at the races, there's a logic to it. You can see it.
So I actually had Joyce, the winner of season 7, on my podcast, and this has been a huge theory throughout the entire community. So I want you to debunk it. What was the deal with that flight with Joyce and Rob and Amber, like flying to Miami in the last leg? Like, because a bunch of people want to know, like, was that flight really delayed like a bunch of time, or was it like a minute? Or can you kind of describe like what happened there? Because Rob and Amber were pissed off.
Look, it is exactly what you see is exactly what happened. We were in Devon. We were there. I was at the airport, but I was outside. I was outside the area, so we were not even near the thing. It was strictly between the airline personnel and the team. Nobody had anything to do with it. I mean, it keeps on coming up, but this this is just not true. Nobody was there. Nobody influenced it. Had nothing to do with it. It's strictly as it happened. What you see is exactly what happened.
So do you have any favorite moments ever on the race? Whether it's like on a season or just anything in general, do you have like a favorite moment that kind of sticks out? Maybe even finishing season 1 or anything like that? Or what's your favorite? Have you had a favorite moment ever?
Well, you're right. You know, season 1, the finish line, making the finish line of season 1 was enormous. You know, it was a very big achievement for everybody that worked on the show, no question about it. But then we put a logic into it more and more and more and more. And we figured out that we can't work 24 hours a day, you know, that we need to have a break every so many hours. But my favorite moment was, one of the favorite moments is definitely reaching the fountain in New York, for no question about it, or the globe.
So just a production question. What does it take to be like a cameraman, or like you said, the people that like test your challenges, and what does it take to be part of production? Because I can't imagine, like, you see all the amazing racers running with their 20-pound backpacks or whatever. With these cameramen, they have to be in shape, like lugging on those huge cameras, making sure that they get in the cars. You have the sound people, obviously. So what does it take to kind of be part of the Amazing Race production? Because that almost seems harder than the race.
Well, these guys are, first of all, they're good filmmakers. You know, they're all handpicked, and they're just really, really good, and all in very, very, very good shape. You got to be, in general, you got to be in good shape if you want to be a cameraman in this business. So in the genre that we operate in, but yeah, they're in great shape and they're fantastic people. They are relentless. They're great, and I'm their biggest fan. I used to do that work for many, many years, as you may or may not know. So they follow the example that I've done for many, many years, and so yeah, no, they're fantastic. Cameraman, sound man, incredible.
So just a challenge question. One of my favorite challenges is the classic rolling the hay bales and you have to find the clue in the hay. What was that like, seeing that challenge? Because I can't even imagine you thought it was going to last like 6 or 7 hours. Like, what did you
It was crazy. It was crazy.
That?
You know, also the idea how I came up with this, I was driving through the landscape there, somewhere just outside Stockholm, and I see all these hay bales. And that's why I said, can we unfurl those hay bales? That's how it started. And then we found this farm, and the guy said, we'll play along with you guys. These hay bales are so heavy to push. And the best part is, you know, some contestants run up, they roll down the thing, they find the clue, boom, they're out of there. And that last team that were there for 6 or 7 or 8 hours, they could not find, they rolled bale after bale after bale. They were exhausted, and rightfully so, because it's very, very tough to push these things. Yeah, but it's actually one of my favorites. You know, I like it a lot.
Can you just describe the Oman legs? Because I've heard that, like, in general, like in the Amazing Race, I think it was with the Gary and Mallory elimination, and then in season 9, how difficult those were. Because I heard in Oman, like, that lasted like 17 hours. So can you imagine, like, can you just talk about from a production standpoint, like, what that was like, just like waiting for these teams and trying to figure that out? Because that looked like a nightmare.
Well, we had one in Hong Kong also, if you remember, where these 2 girls, they went to a restaurant. They knew they were last, and they said, you know what, we're not going to check in because we like this so much. We're going to stay up as long as we can. And I had an overtime bill that was ridiculous from all this crew that were waiting for them at the finish line with Phil and everybody on a junk boat in the harbor of Hong Kong. Hours and hours and hours went by, and we can't tell them, hey, come on, get out of there. You know, we can't do that.
Yeah.
So we had to wait till they did it. So yeah, we've had situations of people that are either misappropriating their welcome, you know what I'm saying? It has happened.
Yep.
Because like I said, and we have people that just took them a long time to perform the task. We've had both.
I actually interviewed that team. I interviewed Peach Yeah, I interviewed one half of that team, so that's pretty funny.
That was funny. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.